everybody, welcome to this week's tutorial. Hope you're all well. If you could please give me a thumbs up and pop a note in the comments, and if you're with me live, let me know if you can hear me and see me okay. If you're watching on replay a little bit later on, do give me a thumbs up as well, and just pop me a note in the comments so I know you were present. But do pop me a note in the comments, let me know if you've done bead embroidery, what you like about bead embroidery, anything you find a bit of a challenge, or perhaps it's new to you. And if you are a bead embroiderer already, I'm hoping I will be able to cover something a little bit new for you in the tutorial. What we're going to do first of all is have a look at the sample piece. We're going to glue on the cabochon, which is a bead without a hole in it. It's got a flat back. And then I'm going to show you some other samples of various kits and paid tutorials and free tutorials that I've got for bead embroidery in case you've missed any of them. I absolutely adore the labradorite, and some of them are blue flash. This is sort of an orangey greeny flash on it, and we're going to have a look and see how we use what's called the cup chain. And the cup chain looks like this, and there's little bits available. You don't need much for your project. I'm also using some delicas, which is the brand and shape of the seed bead, and some size 10 seed beads. I'm using these 2.5 by 1.5 crystal rondelles, which is what I've got around the edges. And if there's space and time, we'll do some of the embellishments as well. It's a blue goldstone cabochon. You can see the sparkles in that. Absolutely love that. This is beading foundation, which is available. It's on special at the moment, £1 for a 6x5 piece, which will go quite far. So E6000 clear glue, not plus. Don't like the plus. It's like an oil slick. Just not for me. Now, I use my old laminated bits and pieces to pop the glue on. If you've got long hair like me, do tie it up. From experience, best not to go there. And just cover. I use a cocktail stick, and I don't go right up to the edge, because if you go right up to the edge, what happens is when you push it down, the excess glue comes out, and then it's sometimes difficult to stitch in just by the side of the cabochon because you've glued in the hole or glued that little bit of the foundation. So I'm going to pop it in the middle, just push it down. Now whilst the E6000 is 24 hours set, it is a quick dry normally for you to be able to do your work straight after. It's just, it needs full curing for 24 hours. So I'm going to put that to one side, and I'm going to just remind you of some of the projects we've done. Now the one I'm wearing is similar to this one. I've done a tutorial that shows you how to make your own cabochons using watercolours and the glass stones, and then we did a tutorial showing you how to do these, which has got embellished cup chain, but they're just the single ones rather than actually on the chain. And this is a paid for workshop online. You could just pay for the workshop, or you could pay for the workshop and the kit. So that's getting that spiral effect on there as well. I know quite a few of you have done that one. This is a free tutorial where I've actually done a pendant that you slide on. And I've got all of these pieces available as well. So I've got lots of kits. For example, the peacock, I've got hedgehog, I've got bees, I've got hummingbirds. So lots and lots of different kits that have actually got everything you need apart from the glue. Without any further ado, let's get going. If I put that up there in case anybody comes in late and wonders what I'm doing. So with a cup chain, you need some side cutters to cut your chain. I would be inclined to just cut it slightly longer than you need it, just in case. So I'm just going to add an extra one in there. Now sometimes the most difficult thing in this is actually getting the cup chain to lie flat. I'm using Nymo, which is a type of beading thread. I wouldn't suggest you using cotton if you've never done bead embroidery before, unless you're just doing a little practice. I'd cut yourself about 1 metre to begin with. You can use any other brands. You've got things like Mayuki thread, you've got Fireline, so lots of different brands. Nymo's a good all-rounder. Sometimes it frays a little bit, which is why I'm using my beeswax conditioning. This is a size 10 beading needle, which fits the size beads that we're using. We are going to tie a knot at the bottom. Now you can just tie an ordinary knot, or you can do this, have a tail at the bottom, wrap it round your needle, 1, 2, 3, 4, then pinch, pinch and glide, pinch, glide it all the way along, and you have your knot. Took me years to be able to master that, I'm not going to lie. So we're stitching in between each of the links to anchor it down. So we pull till we hit the knot, and then we're going to go over that little bar in between. Now the other tricky thing is you've got little prongs on the top of these cup chains, and it's ever so easy for your thread to get stuck around those prongs. So I'm going to move along a bit more. It's also quite handy to have a little pin available. You can probably see clearer than I can. So we're doing a stitch which I understand in embroidery technique words is called a couch stitch, couching down. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, and that helps to lie it flat. When you do your first row of seed beads, I try not to go for anything too pale unless you want it to be subtle like that. I first of all started with a row of silver lined beads, and it was really difficult to distinguish between the cup chain, and it really lost the impact. Right, so as you can see, I'm coming to the end, and I'm going to just chop one of them off with, sounds painful doesn't it, with my side cutters. There we go. Right, so there we are, that's your first row. The next row we're going to do is, I'm going to do Delicas, which is a brand by Milky, and they're like tubes, and I'm going for the blue because I want the blue to try and make the stone pop, but you can use whatever beads you like. So we're coming up just at the side, and you can use between 4 and 6 seed beads at a time. I'm going to go for 6 because I want to get through the tutorial a bit quicker, and I'm going to lay that against those bits of cup chain, take a nosedive down after the end one, pull that through at the back. Okay, if we turn it over and we look at the previous stitch, which is there, going to bring that up, and we're going to do what we call reinforce by popping our needle back through that group of 6, pulling that, get the tension on it, and then add another 6. Use the tip of your needle, don't strain your eyes. It's really easy to just pop them on your needle without, like I say, straining your eyes, and just lay that around the cup chain and repeat as you did before. Take a nosedive down. So we'll back stitch. Trisha's saying, does it matter what colour thread you use? Right, personally, I would have used a white, cream or grey to go over the cup chain. I would probably have used a dark colour for the blue, but whilst I'm doing a tutorial, if I did that, you wouldn't really very easily be able to see where my work is going. So that's why I'm using cream, but that's a really good point that I meant to mention. So you just want to make sure that you don't overcrowd at the end, because if you overcrowd it, what happens is it starts to buckle. So we're back stitching again. Now what I like to do is to reinforce and link them up. If you look at it at the moment, you can see where each of the 6 are started, but if you reinforce it and push your needle all the way around, it means that they all link up. Nosedive down, and then we'll put those away. And our second row is these beautiful deep blue, let's pull it across a bit, silver lined blue. So I'm going to bring my needle out just about a mil at the side. I'm going to do 6 again just for speed. The other thing you can do as well is, if you've got small beads, maybe you've even got some small gemstone beads, maybe 2mm gemstones, you don't have to do your bead embroidery with seed beads. You can do them with beads. So that's our second row of seed beads, but third row if you're counting the cup chain. And then we're going to reinforce it, go all the way back round again. Right. I'm going to take that to the back before I run out. And what I'm going to do is go underneath one of the thread bars, pick up a tiny fraction of the foundation, just go back round again with a bit of the foundation and just tie a knot. And I do that in a couple of places if you've got enough thread. And then I'm going to cut some more thread and we'll do our final row, which is the tiny rondelles. Now I've got some of these available as well, one of my favourites. I love them in little bracelets as well. Come out just at the side and then I'm going to add 6 again, hopefully, see if that works. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Lay that by the side of the previous row and then take a nosedive down. The other thing I forgot to mention was cut the edges off, because honestly there is nothing worse. It drives you crazy when you've got pointed edges, because every time you start pulling your thread through it gets stuck. If I hold it on the side, you've got 4 holes at the back, so position it roughly where you want it. And then I'm going to bring up my needle at the back and pop it through 2 of the holes like so, and nose dive down. Personally, I think I'd be inclined to just think about one either end on this. Let's see what it looks like. The other thing you could do as well is, if you've got any butterflies, you've got some little flat flower beads or something like that, you can actually use those to create a little bit more interest in your piece. And if you need to straighten it up a little bit, you can reinforce and tighten that. I'm going to stitch another one in anyway. It's not the easiest thing to stitch. The most difficult part is actually getting it in place as to where you'd like it. I'm going to bring the needle up just by the side what you'll need to do the other side is to make sure you get them both at the same angle. So I'd just go back in and reinforce that so they're in the right place, and then you can either just leave the one lot of 3, or you could pop another one at the top. Just talk you through the next bit before we finish. So you would trim off your foundation. I recommend that you trim from the back. Get yourself a nice sharp pair of scissors. Make sure you don't cut into these. If you do, don't worry. Have a spare needle and thread with a knot on it, so that if you do that, you capture it ready at the bottom. Okay, I would recommend don't cut off your thread, bring it to the front, and then I've got some of this in the group thread. This is like a faux leather, so cut round your faux leather, maybe draw round it, cut it, and then you can either do some very small stitches, sort of come up in between the beads and do some very small stitches, or you can do something called brick stitch, which is actually, you can watch the brick stitch. This is brick stitch, where you stitch beads on the side and you stitch the backing with it. Now you can't, stitches are invisible with the brick stitch, can't see them. So that's another option. If you want to, you can do the E6000 glue. Either just stitch a loop at the top. You could glue on a bail if you want to, like this, a little spoon on the back. You could make a loop, which I've done on this one, just a small loop, okay, with a jump ring in it. So that's, straighten that up. It's so beautiful and sparkly, and that was the one with the labradorite, which, to be honest, I'd probably wear it that way up. Anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you. Thank you for joining, and don't forget all the links are at the top if there's any kits, any seed beads, etc. you want. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you very soon. Take care. Bye.